Guys, DIY with Dan. Today we're going to be changing out a lock set. Sometimes on your house you might want to change your keys or get them rekeyed. In this case we're going to get these rekeyed, but it's good to know as a homeowner how to change out your lock set. It's a real simple job, just a couple tools, so let's get started. So on a typical lock set, not all, but on a typical one, when you look inside your house, you'll see a couple Phillips head screws on the door handle and on the deadbolt. And that's pretty much the only tools you're really going to need to be able to switch out a lock. Different brands have different things, different security features that they can have with them. There's some Schlage locks out there that have what's called a rose that goes over the screws, but they'll have instructions on the new set once you get it. Now you can do this with just a regular handheld Phillips screwdriver like this, but these screws are pretty long. So if you do have your own cordless drill, which I do right now, I'm going to go ahead and use this. When you go to tighten it back down though, I suggest using the handheld Phillips so you get a good feel for it. Just spin this out. And same on the bottom. And the whole assembly will pull out like that from the inside. And you just pull your door open and the front will come out as well. Now if you look in here, you can see what you've got left for your bolt for your door. All right, so we got our locks rekeyed at the locksmith. In your case, if you're buying new, it'll have instructions with it, new hardware and things you can use, but I'm just reusing all my old hardware. So I'm gonna take and put the deadbolt bolt back in, get my screws started. I'm going to start with my power drill, but then I'm going to finish with Phillips head just a hand screwdriver, because I want to make sure that I get these good and tight but don't strip them. That's good and tight on that one, and tight on that one. You'll also want to look, I want to point this out, the bolt itself will say top, if you can read that. You always want that facing the top of your door. Next we'll slide in the deadbolt key face through the slot and line up our deadbolt switch on the inside. Takes a little bit of work to get it to line up, and sometimes you got to flip it over to make sure it's oriented right. Give you those nice long screws to get it in there. A little bit of finagling and get it in like that. You want to make sure that it's lined up centered on your door the way you want it. They do give you a little bit of wiggle room, and you want to make sure that the deadbolt is where you want it to be as far as the bolt out here. Same as the bolt itself. I'm going to screw this down snug with my screws with my driver, but then I'm going to tighten it by hand. And let's get it tight by hand. You don't want to over tighten these. You want it so they won't wiggle loose on you when you're closing and shutting the door over and over again, but you can actually bend this rose if you tighten it too much. Next, you want to make sure that it operates well, and it does. And we'll move on to the regular handle. The handle goes in very similar. You're going to put your bolt back in. Obviously, make sure that the tapered end of it faces the way the door is going to shut. Slide that in. Now, sometimes on your new kits, you might have to adjust this center, and the instructions will tell you how to move it. It's usually as simple as just sliding it by hand. This one is our old one, so I don't have to do that. Okay. Again, I'm going to snug those by hand. Good. Good. Go ahead and put our handle back together. Each side facing out. You want to line it up with your slots. And obviously make sure the handle's pointing to the interior of the door so it doesn't hit. Put your handle back in. It's got its own grooves that have to line up properly, so you really can't do it wrong. If you do, it won't go together. Angle it around to get it back together, like that. And when you can go like that, it usually means that you've hit the right spot. You can look in the holes and make sure they're lined up. It's a little hard to see with the camera, but get your screws in there again. And you can see I slid a little bit down on the door, just like that, so it looks good. And we don't want to crush that rose. Tighten it by hand to make sure it's good and snug. Make sure your bolt moves properly with it, that it moves easily. Make sure that the lock still works. So this side it can turn, but the outside it won't. It's an auto lock one, and we're good to go. And that's it. You can change the door arm that easy. Thanks.